Okay, so you want to own an NFL stadium. Picture it, 70,000 people in the stands, a billion eyeballs on the broadcast. Sunday afternoon, and for 3 hours, this building is the center of American attention. Somewhere in a luxury suite, a billionaire is watching his asset appreciate in real time. Here's the image everyone has in their head. The owner builds the palace. The fans fill the seats. The money rolls in. Simple. Now, here's where the mental model breaks down. In most cases, the owner didn't pay for the stadium. You did. Or some like you did, a taxpayer in a county you've never visited, voting on a sales tax increase you were told would cost a little, and ending up on the hook for a bill that's still being paid off 2 decades later. Ride that again. In the most common version of this business, the private party keeps the team, keeps the revenue, keeps the upside, and the public keeps the debt. And even in the rare case where an owner does pay for the whole thing out of pocket, the stadium itself still isn't really the business. It's the anchor for something else entirely. A real estate development, a media platform, a tax play. The game is the bait, the building is the store. And the store isn't selling what you think it's selling. So far, so good. Let's break down what you're actually buying into. Not every NFL stadium is the same deal. There are 4 tiers here, and which one you land in decides who eats the risk. Tier 1, the legacy public-funded stadium. Think Cincinnati's Paycor Stadium, formerly Paul Brown Stadium. Built in 2000, county-owned. Team leases it. Original price tag sold to voters, around $170 million. That number did not survive contact with reality. More on that shortly. Tier 2, the hybrid public-private deal. This is the modern default. Minneapolis U.S. Bank Stadium is the template, a $1.1 billion building, with close to $500 million coming from state and city taxpayers, plus the city still writing an annual check just for operations and maintenance. The team puts in real money too, but the public is still carrying a huge chunk of the downside with none of the equity. Tier 3, the fully private megastructure. This is the SoFi Stadium model in Inglewood, California. Total project cost, including the surrounding development, over $5 billion, funded almost entirely by Rams owner Stan Kroenke, with close to zero direct public construction funding. This is the tier everyone points to and says, see, private money can do it. Hold that thought, because private doesn't mean no public benefit for the owner. It just means the benefit shows up somewhere else. Tier 4, the leverage play. This is the newest and ugliest version. A team threatens to relocate unless it gets public money, and cities compete to write the biggest check. We've seen states approve $600 million packages just to keep a franchise from walking. This tier isn't about stadium economics anymore. It's about hostage negotiation with a 99-year lease attached. 4 tiers. 1 pattern. The party with leverage keeps the upside. The party without it signs the check. Let's talk about what it actually costs to get into this business and what nobody tells you before you sign. Start with sticker price. A modern NFL stadium build runs anywhere from a bit over $1 billion for a mid-tier venue to $5.5 billion for something like SoFi. That's before you've sold a single ticket. Now here's the first hidden cost. Budgets in this industry are fiction. Cincinnati's Paul Brown Stadium was pitched to voters at around $170 million. It ended up costing more than $450 million to build. And once you tally decades of debt service and maintenance on top of that, taxpayers had effectively spent close to $1 billion on a building that was sold to them as a fraction of that price. Second hidden cost, and this is the one that should genuinely scare you if you're the public partner, escalator clauses. Some of these lease agreements contain a clause that says, in effect, if enough other NFL stadiums install a particular amenity, a new scoreboard, upgraded luxury boxes, your stadium has to get it too, and you're paying for it. You're not just funding a building. You're funding an open-ended subscription to whatever the league decides luxury looks like next year, with no ability to cancel. Third, the repair fund nobody budgets correctly. Long-term capital repairs, roofs, turf, HVAC, security systems routinely cost far more than cities actually set aside. None of it is optional. All of it compounds the longer you own the asset. So the honest CapEx picture isn't billion-dollar building, done. It's billion-dollar building, plus a permanent, growing, contractually obligated maintenance and debt service tax that runs for decades. And if you're the public party in this deal, you signed up for the exposure without the equity. Here's where most people get the business model backwards. Everyone assumes the money is in ticket sales. It isn't. 10 home games a year, even at a sold-out stadium, can't generate the returns these projects promise. Forget tickets. Then everyone assumes it's the suites, and it's closer. A stadium like SoFi carries over 260 premium suites, many locked into annual contracts worth 7 figures each. That's real money. But it's still not the engine. Then people land on naming rights, also closer. Naming agreements on major new stadiums have landed anywhere from roughly $400 million to over $600 million across 20-year terms, tens of millions a year, guaranteed before a single fan walks through the gate. It doesn't depend on wins, losses, or attendance. It's closer to a bond than a business. None of those are the biggest business in the building. The biggest business is real estate. SoFi Stadium isn't really a stadium business. It's the anchor tenant of a 298-acre development. Retail, offices, a hotel, thousands of residential units, all built around the stadium's gravitational pull. The stadium itself might run close to break-even once you count debt service and operations. The land underneath and around it is where the actual wealth compounds. Every ticket you sell pays for game day. That money comes and goes season after season and mostly funds operations. But every acre of land you develop around the stadium pays for your net worth because that value doesn't reset each Sunday. It appreciates every year the district exists, whether the team wins a Super Bowl or goes 4-13, and it's not just the land, it's the franchise sitting on top of it. Jerry Jones bought the Dallas Cowboys in 1989 for $140 million. By 2025, Forbes had the franchise valued at roughly $13 billion. That's not a return on a football team. That's what happens when a stadium and its surrounding real estate turn a sports team into a compounding asset class. The team is the show. The land and the franchise value it drags upward with it is the business. So if the upside is this real, why do these deals so often turn into disasters for whoever's holding the bag? Case study 1. Cincinnati and the Bengals. In 1996, voters approved a sales tax hike, believing they were buying a $170 million stadium and a guaranteed future for their team. What they actually bought was a structure that ballooned past $450 million in construction alone, an escalator clause that keeps forcing new spending to match other stadiums around the league, and a debt load so heavy that in 2011, stadium-related costs consumed over 16% of the entire county's budget, money that would otherwise have funded police, schools, and roads. The county is still paying off bond debt from a stadium that opened in the year 2000 deep into the 2020s. This is failure by structure, not by a bad year, but by a contract that was lopsided from the day it was signed. Study 2, St. Louis and the Rams. In 1995, the city put around $280 million in public funds behind what was then called the Edward Jones Dome, built specifically to lure and keep the Rams. 2 decades later, the team's owner, Stan Kroenke, the same person building SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, moved the franchise to California anyway, arguing the St. Louis Stadium didn't measure up. St. Louis was still carrying more than $100 million in unpaid bond debt on that building at the time of the move, with no team left to help pay it off. The city, county, and stadium authority sued the NFL for breach of contract and eventually won a $790 million settlement, one of the largest in sports business history. But that settlement came 5 years after the team left, years after the debt was already being serviced with no tenant, and it never restored the actual football team. Both failures share the same root cause. The public party takes on multi-decade, fixed financial exposure, debt service, maintenance escalators, operating subsidies in exchange for a promise that depends entirely on the goodwill of a private party who can walk away whenever a better offer shows up in another city. So, let's put a number on this. Depending on which side of the table you're sitting on, this business looks completely different. Optimistic scenario: you're the private owner, Tier 3 structure. You finance the building yourself, but you also capture the real estate upside, the naming rights, the suite contracts, the PSLs. and often several $100 million in tax breaks, even without a direct public subsidy for construction. Your franchise value climbs, your surrounding land appreciates every year the district exists. On this side of the table, the math can be extraordinary. You're not really in the football business. You're in the land banking business with a football team as the world's most expensive marketing department. Realistic scenario. You're the public partner, Tier 1 or Tier 2 structure. You're funding a depreciating asset with escalating maintenance obligations, decades of interest payments, and zero equity upside, while carrying real relocation risk the entire time. Best case, the team stays, the debt gets serviced, and you break even on cash flow while losing money on opportunity cost. Worst case, the team leaves, and you're paying off a stadium for a franchise that plays its home games somewhere else. Here's the rule to take with you. In this business, the stadium's revenue is never really in question. The naming rights, the suites, the licenses, they're going to get sold no matter who owns the building. What's actually in question is who's holding the debt when the lease ends, the team leaves, or the escalator clause fires. The math gives you a guaranteed top line. Everything below it, the leverage, the risk, the fine print, is a fistfight. The fan thinks he's buying a ticket to a football game. The billionaire thinks he's buying land. The city thinks it's buying economic growth and civic pride. 20 years later, look at who actually got what they paid for, and you'll notice it's almost never the same person twice.